Well, hello everyone. I'm Helene. Welcome back to Cabin Fever Crochet, and welcome if you're here for the first time. Just a little quick intro. I wanted to show you, yes, I did it. I finished my Dreamy cowl or infinity scarf, your choice, to go with my Dreamy beanie or slouchy hat. Link to that tutorial below. And then I also have a third item, if you haven't already seen it. Those are my Dreamy gloves. So you can make a complete entire set or any one or two or whatever that you like to do. So as far as this cowl goes, I worked it up in the same yarn. I'll show that to you when I get to my table. But I just wanted to give you a little overview, and I hope that you can see this real clearly. You can work this up and I think just about any yarn, and just going to go with the corresponding hook size. I do recommend that if you're going into a chunkier, bulkier weight yarn, that go up at least one, maybe two hook sizes. You might have to do a swatch on that just so you get nice drape with that and it doesn't wind up being like a stiff neck brace. And really there's not much else to say other than, again, cowl, you can make it as short, as long as you like. I made mine to drape just about mid-chest so that when I'm out and about and it gets real chilly, that I can have some nice warmth on my chest. I can just, what I do is I made mine pretty wide. I don't know how many rounds that I did going up. I didn't really keep track. I just went until I thought that was enough. And so that I can either like squish this down like I did today when I was out walking, and I started out, it was really windy and I felt kind of chilly when I started out. So I initially had it pulled up, crossed over, and I folded that down, and then I zipped up my jacket so it kept my neck warm and my chest warm. And then as I warmed up and got a little too warm, then I just pulled it back and I pulled it out of my jacket. And what's nice is because it is so drapey, I was just really able to squish this down and even pull it back a little bit off the back of my neck. And because it's the same on both sides, looks really good. You can even fold it down and really give yourself that nice kind of drapey cowl look in front like that. You see? That gives, I think, a nice little touch too. Nice accessory element. And then infinity scarf. Yeah, you can just make that real long and double it up if you live in a really frigid climate and you want that extra warmth. Or you can just go up a couple or more hook sizes in a lighter weight yarn. I'm going into spring. Anyway, okay, so I guess enough said of that. Let's get into it and get her done. Alrighty, so real quick, I just want to show you the stitch that I worked from, and this is one of my go-to books that I work back to a lot, 500 Crochet Stitches, the Ultimate Crochet Stitch Bible, on page 119. The Grit Stitch 2, Roman numeral 2. It's a 1-row repeat, really easy, and I configured it to work in one continuous round. And what's interesting is that it gives a really different look if you're working in just a straight row, rectangle, back and forth, versus working in the round, such as I did with my Dreamy beanie hat or slouchy, and also this cowl. And so yeah, here's where I started at this end. And when working in the round, kind of gives more of a diagonal look to it. And again, don't work this stitch tight. And especially if you're working with a natural fiber like a wool, merino, alpaca, or a blend, by having some openness to the stitches, it will allow the fibers to open up, and that's going to add more warmth to that. Now, here's just one more little thing I want to point out before we get started. I wanted to recreate the same look on the inside and then again on the end to finish, so I would have this nice border. So I played around with it a few different ways, and this is what I came up with. So the outside on this end is the same as the inside on this end, and then it's reversed where the inside on this end is the same as the outside row around on this end. So if I bring them in closer, you can see how these are really resemble each other, and then these do too. So that's why I think it visually it works real well. So get two colors, your main color and then your contrasting color, and again I think just about any weight. Go with the recommended hook size or use your own judgment, and then I recommend going up at least one from there. And I went up 2 hook sizes or more than what was recommended. And oh, just to tell you real quick, now these are both from Knit Crate. This is a recent crate, Vitalana, their Lofty Decay. This is a color Firewood. 48 merino, 20 baby alpaca, 32 organic cotton. It's a DK, 274 yards for your standard 100 gram, 3.5 ounce hank. And I used an eye hook for the entire body of the work. And needle size, it's calling 3.25 to 3.75. So I went up 2 sizes. And I did it with this yarn because of the type of construction. It's a chainette, and the yarn really does live up to its namesake, Lofty, and the stitches bloom and they do loft up. And because I've worked with it before, and for that reason I knew that I could go up. And when I tried it with the Beanie, lo and behold, it really did work with the yarn from the previous crate, which is their worsted, the Knitology, their Knit Crate's in-house brand, and glowing worsted, and this is the color Beta. And I believe I'm just going to work up a swatch. I'm going to go through the whole thing with you. Okay, so you will need 2 hook sizes. I'm going with an eye, 5.5 millimeter, and then the next one up from that, 6 millimeter J hook for these particular gauge yarns, because it really does work up a lot better doing the last round, and because it's a slip stitch round, which tends to get tight naturally anyway. So in order to avoid that, it just made it so much easier to go up a hook size. So first I'm going to start with the main color, as I did here, to get this effect. All right, I'm just working in, this is Red Heart Soft yarn in Blush, I think it's called, I don't know. And then this is Karen Jumbo yarn. I just happened to have this out from a hat I made recently and showed you in my last show and tell. This is a 12 ounce in the color Rosewood. And I am going to go up a knot here to my J hook, 6 millimeter, for my beginning foundation half double crochet, just to help keep that beginning round from becoming too tight, kind of shrinking in on itself. Okay, I'm not going to mess with that knot right now. I'll get a stitch marker too, and I always get one that's an opposite color of what I'm working with, so I can actually see it. Okay, so begin with a slip knot and leave yourself a long enough tail for when we'll be working in one continuous round. So when we sew the two ends together, you want enough yarn for that. Okay, and we're going to do a foundation half double crochet, building our chain and our half double crochet in one. And just you go for however long or short that you like, as long as you have an even number. Okay, so foundation half double crochet, chain 2, yarn over, go back to that first chain, and I go through that top loop and then that middle back bump kind of loop together, and go through 2, and that seems to help keep that stitch more together, keep it from pulling out at the knot. Alright, so yarn over and pull through, and pull that loop up to the height as the 2 loops that are already on your hook. Okay, yarn over and pull through that first loop, that's your first chain, pull the loop up, yarn over and pull through all 3. Now you just made your first half double crochet. So half double crochet, you know, consists of 3 loops, so always the first 3 that are closest to your hook help you remember this stitch, and that's your half double, and then the stitch behind it or below it is your chain. So again, yarn over, you want to go through both loops of that chain. Keep that height up there so that it doesn't the chain becomes smaller than the rest of your work. Go through both loops, yarn over, pull through that first loop, there's another chain, yarn over and pull through all 3, and this is all you do over and over and over again, and keep going to your desired length. And stop when you feel like it's long enough and on an even number. Okay, so go ahead and do yours, and then I'll meet you at the end, and then we'll connect and begin our border. I have finished my little length here. Now, some people count the first 2 chains that we did at the beginning as a stitch. In this particular pattern, really doesn't matter so much if you do or don't. I've tried it both ways and it looks pretty close to the same, but I like working into a full stitch, so I am not going to count those first 2 chains. I'm going to work into the next chain, which belongs to this first half double crochet here. So I'm setting aside that J 6mm hook way off so I don't accidentally grab that, which I've done before and used the wrong one. Now I'm down to my eye hook, 5.5mm. We're going to connect our 2 ends. So you want to, this is how we ended here with the working loop with our half double crochet in the bottom and the chain on top. All right, so we're going to turn that around, and you want the right side, the outside of the work on the outside and facing you, and keep your get your working yarn out of the way so you don't accidentally have that on the inside when you connect your ends. And then so you're the wrong side, the inside will wind up being on the inside when we bring the 2 together. So now your working loop is at the top on the right hand side, and on the left side your tail and your beginning slip knot is at the bottom. So now we're going to connect with our contrasting color. Now we're going to connect our 2 ends together, so go through the top loops of that first stitch, take your contrasting yarn, bring it through that first stitch and through the loop on your hook. and I'm going to chain one just to secure that because it's a new yarn. And what I tend to do is I just tie the, I don't even do a square knot, I just do a quick little tie here to keep it from unraveling, and then I take stitch marker, at least till I get first few rounds going, and I just take a couple stitches on one side and a couple on the other just to secure that bottom, because this is a tail. Here's where we're going to connect and put the two ends together. Alright, so you can chain two if you want, and all we're going to do is front post crochet and back post crochet, alternating all the way around. You can chain two at the beginning of your round. I prefer doing an alternate double crochet for this because then you don't get that jog at all and that extra space between from the chain two as you go up. But alternating front post, back post, it does tend to push the chain to the back, but I still like this way. Whatever you do is up to you, but I'm going to show you what I do for mine. Pull up your loop to the height of a double crochet, take your hook, tip it down, go around backwards. Okay, keep a hold of that loop on your hook with your finger, because if you let go, it untwists. Okay, and then now around the post of that first stitch, okay, that first half double crochet around the post, not through the top of the stitch, but around the post. Yarn over, pull up a loop, and yarn over, pull through the first loop, excuse me, and then go around the back of that loop on your hook, and then now yarn over and pull through the last two. What happens though with this alternate is that the stitch tends to pull over and the top loop rolls a little bit. So if you want to get an extra stitch marker until you get the hang of it, just put it through the top of those two loops that make up the little V, so you know where you're going to join as you come around. Okay, so that's one front post double crochet, and now we're going to do back post around the half double of the next stitch. That's all we're going to do all the way around. Front post, back post, and you know it's always the first round that takes the longest on this, because after you do that, then it's really clearly defined. Alright, so that's all you do. Front post, back post, all the way around. When we get back to the beginning, just going to slip stitch into the top of those two loops at the beginning, work another alternate front post double crochet, and then around this first front post double crochet, and then you just front post, back post all the way around for those of you who are seasoned, and then you just go to the height, the width that you want for your ribbed, your stretchy border, and then we're going to switch back. I'm going to show you how we connect for that, and then go into the body of the work for the pattern. I've come around at the end of my first front post, back post round. I have one stitch left, which butts right up next to this join. I took my stitch marker out so I can get around to it. So that is a back post. It's a little bit awkward. So I have to go in between this last stitch and the first stitch to connect. Okay. Now you can, if you want to, just to keep those together, you can put that stitch marker back in just for now. And then I will do one more round. Okay, so here is the slanted, you see how it slants? That's the top right there. And when we connect, it brings it straight where it needs to be. So there's the beginning of it, goes up to the top. Okay, so slip stitch to join. And now I'm not going to chain one for this round, and every consecutive round for the border, because I had joined on a new yarn and I wanted to secure that. So now I'm just going to bring my yarn up to that double crochet height and do the alternate. Hold on to the loop, take the hook, point it down, wrap around backwards. Now we're going to go around the post of that first front post, double crochet, and then create another front post double crochet. Okay. And then back post around the back post. Front post around the front post. Back post around the back post. Front post around the front post, and that's it. And then join to the top of your alternate front post double crochet, just as we did at the beginning of this round, and again continue to your desired height. And on this cowl I went up 3 rounds. I didn't want it too wide, and I just kept going until I thought, okay, that looks good. So I'm going to do it just 2 here, so we can 2 rounds, so we can move on to the next segment of that. Okay, so then I will see you back at the beginning. Back around to my last stitch of the second round of border, and which is my back post double crochet. Now you can carry your yarn from the back up if you like, and you know how to do that. But because the stitches look the same on the front and the back, and where I showed you how you can fold over and you can get that nice cowl effect and more drape, or get some of that off of your neck if you get warm and you need to, that after each color change, I cut my yarn, I reconnected and started over. And that's what I recommend if you don't want to see the line of your yarn being carried up. But because this is a swatch, I don't want to cut all these pieces of yarn and then they won't be usable to me again. Alright, so now I'm going to switch colors. Take out my stitch marker because I feel like my bottom is secure enough now with those 2 rounds, and then I need that stitch marker for the body of the work. So now to get this look here where you have the main body going into the stitches of your border. So now with our main color, we're going to slip stitch into the top of that alternate front post double crochet and keep the yarn you're no longer working with cinched down or tied off in some way so that it doesn't separate. Okay, so we're not going to chain 1, and we're going to be working half double crochets and a little bit differently. So instead of working around each post, we're going to work through the top of each stitches. Except in this very first one, yarn over, you're going to work through the very top, go through both loops, and then around the post. That's only for the first stitch. Okay, so you finish off your half double, like you normally do. So now for the next stitch, the back post, yarn over, and you go through the top of the stitch, and from back to front, and now front to back through the top of the next stitch, which actually belongs to that next front post double crochet. Okay, finish off your half double. And now we're going to work into the top of every stitch all the way around. Okay, so yarn over, go through the top of the double crochet, come around the back. So you're still doing a post stitch, but it's through the top of the stitch rather than the post itself. Okay, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all three. And then again for the back, yarn over, go around the back in the top of the stitch, back to front, and then through the top of the next stitch, front to back, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all three. And this is all you repeat over and over again. So front to back is how you begin, just like you're working the post, except you're only doing it at the top of the stitches. And this is how I got that separation and the look of doing color work. Okay, so go ahead and do this all the way around. And now we're going to begin the pattern. Yay! Okay, so we're not going to slip stitch or chain one or anything. Just make sure that the loop on your hook is cinched down to join. There's no space here, because if your loop is raised up, then you're going to wind up having a gap. Bring that down, and then just go right into the top of your first stitch and work one single crochet and one double crochet all into the same stitch. There's one single, one double. Okay, now take your stitch marker and put that into your first single crochet. Walking stitch marker helps. Skip the next stitch, which is that little back post, and then in the top of that half double sort of kind of post thing we did there, I don't know what to call that. All right, work one single and one double. That's all you do all the way around. Work a single double, skip the next, single double into the next. So we're skipping the back post, and in the front post work just through the top of the stitch, not around the post this time. That's one single, one double. Skipping that back post into the next front post, one single, one double. That's it all the way around. Skip one, single double into the next. I'm at the end of round one of our pattern. And take the stitch marker out for just a sec, and now we're just going to work in a continuous round, around and around. In every single crochet, you're going to place one single and one double. Make sure you put your stitch marker back into that first single crochet before you go any farther. Okay, you're going to skip the double and work one single, one double, and the next single crochet. So all you're going to do all the way around, you're going to skip every double crochet, and you're only going to be working into the single crochets. Skipping the double into that single, work one single, one double, all the way around. Skipping the double, there's the single, work one single, one double. On every single round, you come back to the beginning, take your stitch marker, you jump right into that first single crochet and work your two stitches, your single and double, skipping each double and only working into the singles, just like we did here. That's all you do, around and around and around until your desired width. And then when you finish, we'll come back and we're just going to do what we did here for the border in the reverse
order.
And I'm back around. I've finished. I did one more round so you can see how the stitch pattern is working up. And this would be real pretty tonal like this in the fingerless gloves. I really like this look together. It's soft, it's different. I like both. And both are really contrasting and the more tonal. Alright, so now I've taken my stitch marker out. I finished my last single crochet and double crochet. And here is the first stitch in the round. So we're going to skip that double crochet as always, and into the first single crochet we're going to slip stitch to join, chain one. We're going to place a single crochet into that same stitch, and in every stitch around, one single crochet in every single crochet and every double crochet all the way around. It's going to give us a base for doing our finishing border. Now don't do this tightly because we're going to be working post stitches around these single crochets in the next round. So you need to have the space to get around them. So one single crochet in every stitch around. We're not skipping any this time. Okay, well, I'll see you back at the beginning. Now back to the contrasting color. We're going to alternate front post double crochet and back post double crochet around the single crochet. Okay, and we're going to slip stitch into the first single crochet with that contrasting color. We're not chaining one. You're only good, well, you would chain two if you're not doing the alternate front post double crochet. You would just chain two at the beginning of each of these rounds. But if you're not like I am, then don't chain. Just, I mean, you can do the one since you're starting a new color, but I'm just going to skip that. Chain one here because the works pretty secure, and then once you cut your yarn you can tie your two tails together to keep them from coming apart. But I wanted to do that at the very beginning since there's not much below to keep that secure. For me that was just a little extra security. Okay, so here we go. Around, it's a little tight little space around the single crochet. Front post around the single crochet. And for the second stitch, now we're going to do a back post around the little single crochet. Front post double crochet. Back post double crochet. Front post double crochet. Back post double crochet around every single crochet. You're going to alternate front post double, back post double. That's it. Remember I said the outside on the beginning round will be now the inside of the finishing round, and the inside of the beginning of the round will be the outside of the finishing round. I thought, well, you know, it doesn't have to necessarily be entirely matchy-matchy, and being that we do have the outside to the inside and inside to the outside to the same, that's where we get that continuity and balance. Alright, so just continue this, working your front post, back post, alternating all around each single crochet, and I'll meet you back at the beginning. And here I am. Now because I worked the alternate front post double crochet and it's pulling the stitches, it kind of weirds out that last single crochet a little bit, so make sure you don't miss that, and you just know that your last stitch is going to be the back post around the last single crochet. And then now we are going to slip stitch to join into the top of that first alternative front post, double crochet. It's a roly-poly stitch. Okay, there. And then now we're just going to do the same thing. Alternate front post, double crochet around the front post from the previous round, and now back post, double crochet around the back post from the previous round, just like we did here. We're just creating our front post, back post stitches all the way around. So you're going to work a front post double around the front post and a back post double crochet around the back post, just like we did. That's it. And then again, however many rounds that you worked your rib border here, that's how many you will do on the finishing rounds. And after you've finished however many, whatever your number is for these front and back posts, then we're going to switch back to the main color. I've come back around, finished except for my last stitch, so I'll do my back post double crochet. Okay, and now we're going to switch into the main color, and then again slip stitch to join either to the top of your front post double or your alternate front post double. Make sure you cinch the yarn you're not working with anymore, again down. Okay, so chain one, and now we're just going to go back to those half double crochet and front posts and half double crochet back posts around or through the top of each stitch all the way around. Okay, I'll yarn over, and here's that front post, so we're going to go through the top and around the post just of that first stitch and finish your double. And then now we're going to go through the back, this from back to front again, and then around front to back. And then work through the top of the double crochet, and then through the top and around to that back post. So we're just repeating everything that we did on those first rounds. Okay, so again, just to remind you, we're working in every stitch twice, so whichever stitch you came out of that's the one where you'll begin. So we ended here, finished off with the back post. That's where we'll begin with the front. So again, front to back, and then around the back, back to front. Then you yarn over, pull up your loop, yarn over, pull through all three. Now for the back post, we're going to yarn over, go through the top of the stitch instead of the post. So we ended in this, that's where we begin. So back to front, around that back post, front to back, and finish that off. And this is all you're going to do for this one all the way around. Okay, see you back at the beginning, and then we'll do our final and finishing round. And here I am at the end of my second to last round. I sure like the colors on these, how that worked out. Even with the smaller border at each end, I think it blends very nicely. It's very soft and sweet. I like that. Okay, so now we're just going to slip stitch to join, staying with that same main color, and to the beginning of that first single crochet through both loops, slip stitch. Now set that hook aside and get the larger of the two. chain 1 and into the next stitch, not the same stitch, but the next stitch, you slip stitch, and then that's all you do is slip stitch all the way around, keeping your stitches loose, not sloppy loose. You don't want them gaping. Want them to be nice and even all the way across, but you don't want them tight, as slip stitches can tend to be, because again that's going to shrink in your work, and then one end is going to be smaller, more narrow and tighter than your other end. And all we're doing here, is the reason we're doing this, is because I wanted to replicate the same look that I had at the beginning end, which is my chain. So we built that chain and half double crochet, so that's what we're doing again on this end. Okay, I'll see you back at the beginning. We'll connect, and then I'll just show you how I connect and sew in my end at the bottom. Okay, so that's it for this round. Now when I slip stitch, I'm back to the beginning. I'm going to go back to my smaller hook so I don't stretch that out. Instead of in that first chain 1, I'm going over to the first slip stitch. Makes kind of made a little bit better join, and then you can cut your yarn to finish off, fasten off, and then you can pull through and knot it if you want to. But if you don't want that little visible knot there, what I do, and I'm not going to cut this, you know, because like I said, I'm going to take it apart, but I would just cut the yarn, and then I pull this end through, okay, and then I take the tail end and I run it over the next stitch through to the back, and then I just start weaving in my ends, and I bring it into a spot where I can make a little knot that I can then, as I continue to bury my end, I can pull that little knot through one of the stitches, and then it becomes completely invisible. That's what I usually do. Now I'll just show you real quick how I connect the two ends at the beginning. Okay. And just kind of pretty much what I just explained up here, only at the bottom. So I'm going to pull the two sides together, and I just bring it through my first full stitch, the tail end, through the top of, or the bottom in this case, but going through both loops, and then bring it through like that, nice and secure. I like to bring my knot through to the, so that's going to bury inside this stitch, you see, and then I just start, and keep that together, and then I'll just bring it down and around, and then reconnect these sides again over here. Okay, you see how that pulled that nice and taut and secured that? Gives a nice clean edge. And then I just continue and work and bury my yarn and put a little, my tail end, and put a little knot in there if I feel like I need one. Yeah, so that's all there is to it. I'm looking at this thinking, boy, that would make a pretty cute little boot cuff. Just measure the top of where your boot hits on your leg, your calf, wherever that is, the circumference. Only thing is this is in one round. It doesn't have buttons on it, but as long as it's wide enough, you can slip it over your foot and up your leg that way. Could try it, see how it works. If you have any little leftover pieces of yarn, this might be a good little another use for it. Okay, well that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed this video, enjoyed my little tutorial and my pattern. So please give me a big thumbs up, like, subscribe, share, comment, all that good stuff. Okay, and thanks again for being here. Take care, my friends, and I will see you all soon. Bye.